Cannot build a 19.
Use my resignation.
See if we can set something up. But for right now, that's on hold. And then the third one I got is the other was Huercos. Oh yeah. Still gonna be for the next Monday at 7 p.m. in the art gallery. We have the room reserved. We call it Teresa's Bakery.
There's some truth to all stereotypes. It just becomes an issue when you take it and apply it to everybody. You know, like all black males aren't lazy. All Latino males, don't ever dress up or whatever, or don't go to college, so are all in gangs.
Stereotypes that are typical probably that were perpetuated when I was younger in the public school system. So, a lot of it was with my Latino friends, like they were always very into playing soccer, or with my black friends, they were all more interested in basketball and things like that. So it was at a surface level of what culture has kind of perpetuated throughout time.
Some of the stereotypes that are associated with our race is we are ignorant, we are wild, we're angry, we are lesser educated.
Like, let's work on yourself, on not continuing to spread the story because it is detrimental to the overall brand of Black Male Initiative.
I would say blacks was probably the minority that we were most aware of. And I think we had the perception that it was like gang life for many African Americans. I will say I didn't know anything about the food that they ate. I didn't know, anything about. I didn't know much about lifestyle, but I saw, how they dressed and everything because, I grew up listening to Crisscross, and I thought that, to be cool was to wear your clothes backwards, and, a lot of what I knew about those cultures was from what I did see in the media.
I mean, I guess prime example of the stereotypes that are being associated to us right now would be Donald Trump. We're supposed to be all racist and criminals and in cartels.
When Mexico sends its people, they're not sending their best. They're bringing drugs, they're bringing crime, they're rapists.
It's uncomfortable and it's rude and it's hard and it's like kind of heartbreaking that we are currently in 2015 going on 2016 and you still have people that are such narrow-minded as someone as our potential president.
I think the worst part about what he says is that people see it as a joke. People think that because he's not a politician. He was never in politics. He's not a lawyer. He never went to college to study politics. So they think he's a joke. But those jokes are allowing media to dehumanize Latinos. If it was a Latino saying that about any other race, he would get shunned. He would not be on Saturday Night Live making millions, but we are seen as a joke. And that's why he's allowed to do that.
It's not about you.
It's not about.
Get out of my country. Get out.
This is
not about you.
I'm a U.S. citizen too.
Well, whatever. No, Univision. No, it's not about you.
It's not about you. It's about the United States.
No, it is.
I was listening to a podcast last week where they were. It was someone who they basically hire. They work in central casting, and so they hire actors to serve as the background actors essentially. And so they said that they will, say they need to fill up a coffee shop. They will think in their mind what type of people would be in a coffee shop, and then they hire extras in order to fill these roles. And I think too often people are relying on, older notions of what it is, So if they think of, we need to find some bank robbers, they're thinking, what does a bank robber look like to me? And that's when a lot of their stereotypes are coming out.
South Korea is slowly getting diverse, but it's still not as diverse as United States or any other countries in the world. It's very, very homogeneous, and the cultural interaction between diverse groups is not as eminent as different countries. The linguistic barriers there, the cultural barriers there, so those type of interactions really
barely happen. So what happens in that situation is that a lot of people buy into what the TV, the radio, the movies feed them. They literally think America is a nation with tall buildings, everybody's wealthy, everybody's pretty, which is not the truth at all.
U.S. homeless shelters are struggling to accommodate the growing number of poor Americans.
The working poor have become among America's fastest growing demographic.
Same with stereotypes and minorities. The depiction of minorities through media, I think, infiltrates into people's mind and makes them easily believe that what the TVs and the movies show are the ultimate truth.
For example, in movies and media and Hollywood, like who usually play the maid roles, who usually play the bad people roles, who usually play the thieves, who usually play like the robbers, who usually play the killers. Like it's usually either a brown person or a black person.
When I look at TV now, it's a lot better than when I was growing up and stuff, because we only had 4 channels, I think it was, or 3, and it was all white for the most part. If you saw blacks or Latinos in the movies or in a sitcom or whatever, they were acting really stupid. And again, is that if people who see that, like the Jeffersons and
You know damn well what it means. If you two ever really started going at one another, inside of 5 minutes, he'd be calling you. Don't say it. Nigga. He said it.
People see that, those are the images they put in their minds. So then when they actually get an opportunity to interact with someone of a different race, black or Latino, they already have a negative image of them.
The white people in the media, they're getting perceived as, they have more money, that they are a little bit more successful. You see a lot more of those shows for them, whereas you see reality TV shows for black people loving hip hop.
All we said was, wait, hold on, wait. She said she never did that. What do you mean?
Let's not say we never did nothing, because there was a lot of things that have been done.
So what's
but
the
we
thing?
we might have built a bridge and got across it.
Yeah.
But I know I never slept with my best friend's ex-boyfriend.
Same thing with the negative stereotypes. All the minorities in America are criminals. They all have guns. They all do drugs. And this is very interesting because even though it's a fictional movie that depicts these Latino cultures, black cultures, as those negative traits, the mentality of people who really do not encounter these cultural people directly, their minds is set up in such a malleable way that they're so easy to buy all these mass media feeding, and ends up creating a very, very common misperception towards these people.
I always tell folks and I always tell my students that that's not our culture. A lot of those old gangster films, you don't see people of African descent playing the thug or the gangster. But for some reason today, and I'm sure that the media had a huge role in this, that thug and gangster persona or image is identified with people of color, and that's just not the historical foundational truth.
A thug image through media lenses, it would definitely be a minority with a hooded or some sort of a fitted or snapback, probably rocking some Timberlands or some nice shoes, some nice sport shoes, maybe a jersey. We obviously passed that era a little bit. I think that image definitely seems to transition as what our current minority youth is.
Talked about in your column, and you tweeted, you said Muslim only has to attack one person to be terrorist.
No, threaten, attack, right.
A black man just has to be killed by cops to be thug, but 9 dead, biker gang.
Right, and look, let's be clear, I really don't think this is the most helpful thing if we just get marred in the language. The language is a stand-in for disparate treatment, which is the real problem here. The real problem here is that white Americans and black and brown Americans have a radically different experience of our police, of our banks, of the criminal justice system, you name it.
But what's not equal is the follow-ups that happen with those media portrayal. For instance, if we see a news that's expressing about the minority shootings in Chicago, a lot of people feed onto those news from social media, Twitter, Facebook, whatever. However, if we're talking about a shooter, a white shooter, just shooting a couple people on a theater, there's no racial profiling into it, simply because he's white and he has no negative expectations as a white male. All it ends is, this guy had some mental issues. That's it, period. The news ends.
And then also, it is the media response. It's the fact that when black and brown people commit crimes, we note their race. And when white people do, we don't note their race. We don't, the majority of mass shootings are caused by white men, but we don't say we have this epic problem of whiteness.
The media is manipulating situations to where the audiences think they're correct as opposed to questioning why the media is doing that. I think the media just perpetuates more stereotypes and is allowing for racists to be racist.
We find everybody on TV credible for whatever reason. We feel that they have, because they've said it, now they've lived it. And I think that is a negative mentality we should have towards our media. You as a viewer become just another viewer instead of somebody that's critically thinking their own opinions on how they should consider certain topics.
The media knows how to divide people. They know how to make someone feel important or even make someone famous who not necessarily should be or need to be. And it's all about profits. It's all about that monetary gain.
That's unfortunately, that's what sells. The sex, the drugs, and the violence is what sells to our people, whether we like it or not. We're still gonna go and view it.
It really is kind of scary because they can influence large populations of the whole country. Actually, they can influence them positively or negatively, depends on what they want to do. Like when I was growing up, it used to be really cool to smoke, right?
You have to get a new wheel. It's too bad. Yeah. You have to get a new cigarette, too. Oh? Yeah, these taste hot. These cools don't.
Now they treat smokers like lepers. But they can do that with racial things as well. And just however they want to swing it.
And we automatically start categorizing things, and especially things that we don't know very well, that we don't know or have the time to learn the complexities of issues. So we do form these stereotypes. And I think one of the biggest impacts that it has is it hinders people from trying to get to know each other. Because when you have a preconceived notion in your mind, it's easier just to see someone else of a different culture as being the other. So when someone else is the other, you don't have to go out of your way to help them.
While I was driving with one of my friends, I was actually in the passenger seat, and he owns a 2013 red Mustang. And the cop literally put us over. There wasn't a license or registration. The very first question was, is this your car? Yes, this is his car. How did you get the car? We asked, well, why does that matter? No, I need to know how you got the car. My parents bought me the car. What do your parents do? And that's when I interjected, like, hey, what does this have to do with anything? Like, why were we stopped?
I think a huge piece of that is the ignorance that still remains in the United States of America. Just recently, we had a young child of European descent come into an emergency room, and the father would not let the black nurse touch the child. That child eventually died. And his hate for certain people just because of their skin outweighed his love for his child.
There's a small number of people trying to educate, and I think there's a lot of messages that aren't being amplified as much as they should. I think education is essential to the process of understanding our identities, and again, I think it's important that we embrace and understand our identities, but I think what's more important is that we don't let culture or media define what our identities are.
Cesar Chavez had said one time, if you want to get to know someone, go to their home and eat with them. Those who open their home open their hearts, and so that's been really true for me. And so I think just by realizing how complex people are, it challenges you to get to know people rather than just kind of making assumptions about them.
The way to change the stereotypes really for us as people on this planet is to interact with each other more. So the more you are separated, I think the more stereotypes you perhaps have, because you haven't met anybody that makes that stereotype wrong.
We need to start teaching about racism, as well as teaching about all people in the world equally. That's why I say the curriculum needs to change in America. Start them young. They should be learning about all the people and all the things that they're going to encounter in the United States of America or in the world, so that they can respect it and understand it. Because if all I've learned about you is that you come from a slave, how am I going to perceive you?
My wife, her dad was from Alabama and raised in that kind of environment where it was racist. So when she and I started dating, he pretty much just owned her. And when we finally kind of got together, where we could talk to him some or whatever, interact with him or whatever, you know what happened? I was not the nigga he thought I was in his mind. He was, however, the racist I thought he was. But we came together because he loved his daughter. I loved her too. And we came together about food, Southern food, that kind of stuff, where we could talk and everything. So when he got sick, right before he passed away, we were taking turns taking care of him and stuff. And when my wife would be over there and then I was coming after work or whatever, he would ask her, who's coming next with me? And she'd say, oh, my brother's coming over. And he goes, I don't want him, I want Don to come and sit with me, help me, and that kind of stuff. So the more you really interact, the better off, more we interact as people, the better off all of us are gonna be, I believe. So.